We're also honest about the fact that as the president continued to tell us and show us that he was all in, that we said that we would stand with him, because as Governor Walz said, the president has always had our backs. We're going to have his back as well.
Maryland Governor there, Wes Moore, also part of that meeting, along with New York Governor Kathy Hochul. Afterwards, they expressed support for President Biden amid continued fallout from Biden's shaky debate performance and calls from some for him to step aside.
A similar message from Newsom. We just got this from his team, releasing the following statement. I heard 3 words from the president. He's all in, and so am I. Joe Biden's had our back. Now it's time to have his. With more on where the future of the Biden presidency stands this hour, we're joined by political analyst and Democratic strategist Brian Goldsmith. Brian, good to see you. Real simply, where do we stand?
We're at an inflection point. It's not clear whether the president is going to be the Democratic nominee or not. If I had to place odds at this moment, I would say it's 50-50, and I think it really depends on the president's performance over the next few days, on how elected officials and Democratic supporters respond, and of course to public opinion in the form of all of these polls coming in.
How concerned, speaking of those polls, how concerned are Democrats that keeping Biden as the nominee will be a win for Trump, will really ensure a Trump win and potentially hurt Democrats down ballot?
Very, extremely. The Supreme Court decision this week just emphasized and underlined the stakes of this election. If Donald Trump wins, he really has no holds barred on his ability to move forward with his agenda of punishing his political opponents. And so Democrats feel a collective sense of resolve that we have to win this election. And that is fueling this story about whether the president is the strongest nominee.
So if Biden were to go, there's basically 2 options. One is basically he says we should all get behind Kamala Harris. She's my vice president. She's the future of the party, and the whole party gets behind her. The other option would be I release my delegates. Let's have an open convention, and everybody and their mothers throws their name in, and it's a real messy but kind of exciting thing that happens in Chicago. What's more likely at this point? It seems like Harris has some of the momentum.
Well, I don't see it as that kind of a binary. I think there are all sorts of options in between the 2 that you just described, in which, you know, the president could sort of pre-nominate 4 or 5 different alternatives, including the vice president, and then create a process by which they debate and do interviews and get punished for going negative. People have all sorts of creative ideas. Ann Applebaum wrote a really good piece in The Atlantic today on this subject. I don't think people will accept a coronation for any candidate. I think there's got to be some form of public participation in this process. And look, 6 weeks is not a long period of time. On the other hand, it's the length of the entire British general election. So you can do a lot in 6 weeks.
You have the ear of a lot of insiders. I'm sure you were watching the press briefings today and yesterday, and the vast majority of the questions only dealt with the president's age and whether he's fit for office or not. Have you, prior to Thursday night's debate performance, in which you joined us after and you said it was sad to see, had you heard of any inklings about this much of a concern for his mental fitness?
Well, I think you and Alex are the only 2 insiders who really listen to me, but I appreciate that vote of confidence. I would say to your question, I have not heard any doubts about the president's capacity to do this job. I have heard doubts about the president's capacity to beat Donald Trump in this campaign. And that is really the question on the table for Democrats. I think Democrats have tremendous affection and respect for the president and confidence in his capacity to execute his duties. But look, there are 3 polls that came out before, rather after this debate debacle that show the president 6 points down, that show him presumably down more in the battleground states because the battlegrounds are about 2 points more Republican than the nation as a whole. There are private polls, circulating in the 6 or 7 key states that paint a very grim picture. These are 2 universally known candidates, so it's not clear what's going to shake up that dynamic, and that is what is leading to this, deep and profound concern that we're seeing.
Basically, what you're saying that is if the election was held today, if these polls are anywhere close to being right, Donald Trump would win in a total landslide. And if the president all of a sudden doesn't become real young and start doing all these other interviews and get out there and start showing all this, I mean, what's going to change it? What's going to change the dynamic if you keep him in there where all of a sudden he makes up 6 points? I guess that's the question. We're out of time, but we'll leave you with that question. Brian Goldsmith, thank you so much. We appreciate your perspective.